All right, hey guys, I'm sitting in my stairway because it's really hard to find good lighting in my house to actually do a video. So I could stand in my bathroom because there's light that comes in there, and sometimes I sit on my bed, but then the sun is like usually in a weird spot. And anyway, so here I am sitting on my stairs. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about diet and skin today. And again, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to convince anybody. I just want to share information, all right? Because that's what I do. I just share information. So I find it incredibly interesting that thousands of people in the carnivore community, thousands, like we're not talking just a few, this seems to be a common theme of people that go carnivore and they say that they don't get sunburned anymore, okay? Or they're not nearly as sensitive to the sun as they used to be. Or if they do get a sunburn, it literally heals overnight. And you're just hearing these stories again and again and again and again. And again, it just really goes to show how important diet is when it comes to our skin health. Now, for me personally, what I've experienced is that my skin is far less sensitive than it used to be in all ways, including the sun, okay? So my skin just in general is not as sensitive as it used to be, which is like, hallelujah, like for sure, okay? So since going carnivore, my skin has definitely improved in a lot of different ways. Now, I am not a ruminant meat only carnivore though, all right? So I still eat chicken, turkey, fish, duck, lobster on occasion. On occasion, my husband will bring me home a package of lobster to make like lobster salad or something. Not like we eat that all the time, but just saying. I'm not a ruminant meat only carnivore. And I know that there's a lot of discussion around bird meat, and it's higher in certain things than the ruminant meat that are maybe not as good for our skin. Okay, so again, I do eat those things. The majority of my diet is ruminant meat for sure, but I'm not hardcore on that. And I also consume raw dairy. I drink raw milk. So I'm not super, super low carb, even though I'm very low carb, very, very low carb. And some days I'm as low as 20 grams of carbs a day, but I can definitely bounce around. I can be as high as 60 on other days. So I'm definitely within that window. I make clabber, which is basically like yogurt on crack, and I do consume that. Sometimes I put a tiny bit of maple syrup in it, and I know, oh my gosh, I'm not carnivore if I have a little bit of maple syrup, but what are you gonna do? I actually had a few green beans at a wedding. Let's see, when was that? About a month ago. Yeah, I had gone to a wedding, and whenever I go out, I always try to eat before I go because I never know what's going to be there for food. But I was so busy that morning, and I was trying to like do some stuff and get out the door, and I ended up leaving, hadn't eaten anything. So we get to the wedding, and by the time it, came around to eat, I was like, oh gosh, please have meat, like something substantially meat, like not just like meat in a dish, but just please have some like meat. And all they had for me was chicken. I don't love chicken, and it was chicken breast. Now, if it was chicken legs or chicken thighs with skin, I would have been happy, but it was chicken breast, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I did take 2 of the chicken breast, and I ended up smearing a bunch of butter on it. But I did take some green beans because I'm like, I need something else. There is no way that this chicken is going to be enough for me. It wasn't enough food, and I did end up taking some green beans just to like fill myself up a little bit, but normally I do not eat plant foods. But I will on occasion. Once in a while, if there's salad, I'll take some salad, but I won't eat it if it's like green. I'll only eat it if it's like iceberg or romaine lettuce, more like a Caesar, Caesar type thing without the breadcrumbs, of course. And I will eat a little bit of salad dressing, which is disgusting. I know it's gross. And actually salad dressing is one of the things that every time I eat salad dressing, I always get like little breakouts, like, yeah. But again, It is what it is. I don't do it very often. So I have noticed significant differences in my skin since I've gone carnivore. And the first thing I noticed going carnivore was I never had gross stuff on my teeth. My teeth always felt incredibly clean, to the point of like, there's nothing on my teeth, nothing. And that was like shocking to me, because prior to me going carnivore, I was eating meat and vegetables. I had given up grains a while ago because I figured out they were killing me. Like legit, they were trying to kill me. They were. So when Anthony Chaffee says plants are trying to kill you, I may not agree with him completely on that statement, but when it comes to grains, grains were absolutely trying to kill me. Like they were so bad for me. And I had eaten them my whole life, and giving them up was like, my body was like, yeah. And I was actually getting some really scary symptoms. I actually thought that I had MS. That was a nightmare. That was like a fucking nightmare, thinking that you like have MS and shit like that. And come to find out it was grains. Grains were actually killing me, and giving them up was eureka. And yeah, and I experimented too, because, you know, it's one of those things where like, you'll go like a couple of years and you'll be like, was it really that? Was it really the grains? Was it really? And then I would eat something that had wheat in it, or really could be any grains. Corn. Is corn considered a grain? Anyway, and it would come back, and it's terrifying. And I did it a few times though, just to make sure. And yes, it's grains. Grains don't like me. My body doesn't like grains. So I was basically eating meat and vegetables and drinking raw milk. That was my diet for a very, very long time before I went carnivore. And when I went carnivore, my skin improved, a bunch of my symptoms went away, and my teeth felt clean all the time. And I was like, just by giving up plant foods, just by giving up vegetables, wow, like who knew? So anyway, I've been carnivore for 8 years. And again, I'm not promoting it, I'm not preaching it, I'm just sharing my story. So when you hear in the carnivore community about people not getting sunburned anymore, I do find that really interesting, because I recently discovered that there had been a study. Now, granted, it was just done on, it was either rats or mice, I can't remember. But they had done a study where they fed one group of rats, I believe it was the polyunsaturated fats, and another group of rats saturated fats, and or mice, again, I can't remember which it was. And the ones that they fed the saturated fats exposed to UV did not get skin cancers and skin tumors, but the animals that they exposed to the UV that were fed the polyunsaturated fats, seed oils and things like that, were ending up getting skin cancers and tumors from exposure to UV. Now, can we extrapolate that to humans? I don't know. But the fact that so many people in the carnivore community are saying that they don't get sunburned anymore from being out in the sun, I find that really fascinating. Like really, really fascinating. Okay. And a lot of this ties into cholesterol and how cholesterol protects our skin from UV damage, right? And the vitamin D that our skin is producing is also part of this protective mechanism, right? So it kind of makes sense. The more saturated fat and cholesterol you're eating, the healthier your skin would be. That just kind of makes sense, right? When you understand how the skin actually protects itself from the UV rays. Now, we have mechanisms in our body that prevent DNA damage, just like plants do. So, you know, the whole fear-mongering of the dermatology and esthetician world want us to believe that the sun is just downright dangerous and we have no inherent ability to protect ourselves, but yet plants do. So plants are exposed to the UV, and they're not all they're not all cancer. I don't want to say skin cancer, they don't have skin, but they're not all having cancer, right? Because they have built-in protective mechanisms that prevent damage to their DNA. Now, what if humans have that same protection if we ate a better diet? Something to think about, right? What if an animal-based diet without all the plant foods gives us better skin, and our skin is able to protect itself from sun damage the way nature intended? And those are the things that I look at. Like when people say to me, well, we've evolved or we've adapted to eat plants. And I think, well, it's a survival mechanism for sure. Because the more food that you can eat and use means you have a survival advantage. So if you could only eat one food, and that food is not available, you're going to starve to death. So it is a huge survival advantage for us to be able to eat other things and survive. But does that mean we're going to thrive? And does that mean it's optimal? Okay, and this is where the whole question comes in. We know that people can smoke cigarettes their whole life and never get lung cancer. But does that mean it's optimal for them to smoke? Okay, and again, I know that I probably shouldn't compare that because they're not really the same, but I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying some people can smoke their whole life, not get lung cancer, but it certainly doesn't mean that smoking is good for you, okay? And you can actually get some benefits from smoking. There are some benefits from smoking, okay? Because of what you're smoking. There are some chemicals in there, like whether it be nicotine or what have you, that do have some very limited health benefits. There's also some terrible negative health consequences as well. So it's a mixed bag, okay? But I'm just saying, all right? So what if, yes, we can eat plant foods and not die and get some benefit from it. But what if there is a dark side, right? What if there's a dark side to it? I believe there is for me. I've seen it in my own life, okay? I'm not talking about everybody. I do think that we all have different adaptations because think about it, throughout history, humans have lived in different environments, have had different diets. I think there's a lot of genetic adaptations that have gone on, and I think depending on what your adaptations are is going to determine how well you do with them. I don't do well with them. I just don't. And I've eaten them my whole life because my grandmother and grandfather always had a garden. I always liked vegetables. I always ate a lot of them. I was into whole grains and vegetables at like 11 years old. And I'm not saying I didn't eat junk, but I ate what anybody would have considered healthy foods growing up my whole life. And they never did me any favors, never. And when I went carnivore, I just started noticing radical things changing in my body. And again, less sensitive skin, less sensitive to the sun. My teeth felt clean all the time. I started to just have more sustained energy. I just felt better all the time. I wasn't hungry all the time. Just millions of things improved in my body, in my health, and in my life. And trying to get the whole plant thing to work for me for my whole adult life, it just never did. Because I got into health in college. And I really got into health. And so I was not doing the standard American diet since I was like 20 years old. So when people say, oh yeah, you went carnivore because no. I came from a plant-based diet. I was a vegan for 13 years and then I was omnivore, but heavy plant-based. I was following the Weston Price type stuff, doing the fermenting and all of the ancestral eating and all of that. And it never did me any favors. None at all, actually. Although going Weston Price and adding meat and raw milk to my diet was better than being a vegan, but it still didn't get me where carnivore got me. So yeah, I am a huge believer in the carnivore diet for me. And I've actually seen it do amazing things for my son as well, although my son is not a carnivore, but he did it with me for 3 months when he was younger, because I forget how old he was. I think he was 10 when I first went carnivore. And I was just doing it at home. My husband was eating at work and they were working long days, so he wasn't really eating home very much. So it was just me and my son. And I was cooking carnivore meals and he was eating them with me and he wasn't complaining. So we just kept doing it. And after 3 months, I noticed quite a few changes in him. And there were some things that he had going on that were kind of glitchy. And those things went away. And it was actually pretty freaking incredible. And even the people around us noticed. And it was wild. So my son has a tic disorder and I raised him with the Weston Price style of eating. That was how he was raised. My daughter was raised vegan initially, even though I breastfed for a while. Thank goodness I breastfed for almost 2 years. That was her saving grace. But I was raising her vegan, which is one of the biggest regrets of my life. And then my son was actually raised with the Weston Price. So he had lots of raw milk, lots of meat, but I was still very much plant heavy and eating lots of plant foods as well. My kids were not raised on junk food. My son especially, I tried to really keep him away from that. I, introduced him, his first foods were egg yolks and, did the whole Weston Price thing. And when he went carnivore, his tics basically went away. And like I said, everybody around us noticed. We would go places and people would be like, what's going on? Like, he's been carnivore with me. And it was so dramatic that even he noticed. He was like, Mom, like, I feel different. I'm like, right, you feel different. Of course you do. But after about 3 months, it's difficult. He was like 10 years old. It was really difficult for him to maintain it. And he's going out and he's with friends and he's, going to restaurants and he's, whatever. So it was challenging for him to stay, but he did stay meat-based at home. And I continued to cook mainly carnivore meals, even though if he said he wanted something, I would make it. Like if my family wanted a stew, I would make a stew and I would put carrots in it and, do that kind of thing. But the closer he stayed to carnivore, the less tics he had. And the more he veered from carnivore, the more tics he would have. And that's true for this day too. He's 18 now. And the closer he eats to a hardcore meat diet, meat and raw milk, meat and dairy, he does great. When he starts adding other things in, the tics start coming back more. And of course, yes, sleep and all of that contributes to it as well. But this is mainly diet, because when he was 10, the only thing that changed was his diet. Nothing else changed. And some could argue that it's because he's eating more junk. Yes, he does eat junk, okay? But the 3 months that he was with me, he wasn't out of my sight that much because we were homeschoolers. Everything we did was together. Like everywhere we went, I brought the food. Yes, he had a little bit of exposure at friend's house and things like that. But most of the time, he was eating a carnivore diet and his tics were under control to the point of being crazy. And when he went back to adding in vegetables and fruit and things like that, his tics would come back. And grains are a big one. So yeah, and I know that junk food contributes to it as well. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'm just saying from what I experience with him, it's the plant foods in general contribute to his tics. So it's really interesting. It is really, really interesting. And he notices it too. Like he absolutely notices it. There was a while back where I noticed his tics were kind of whatever. And I was like, hey, bud, I'm like, in addition to getting more sleep and the whatever. And I'm like, you need to start narrowing your diet down, because I said, I can see it. I said, I'm sure you notice it too. And he was like, yeah, like he knows, because he knows the difference. So again, is this going to be true for everybody? No, I'm not saying it's true for everybody. I'm saying this is my experience, and all we can do is go by our own experience, right? Because I don't give a shit about somebody else. If it's not me, like if you can do something that is killing me, then I'm not going to do that, right? If you do something that is working for you and I do it and it's actually not working for me, I'm not going to keep doing it. And I don't care how many studies they've done. I don't care what the studies say. It's like with the oxalate poisoning. When I had oxalate poisoning, I literally had them coming out my nose. I had them coming out the rims of my eyes. I could feel them poking me and stabbing me. I had them literally all over my body. I can only imagine what they've done to my brain. I know they've absolutely wrecked my vision. And I know that they've damaged a lot of things in my body. And again, I am definitely one of those outliers. I had severe oxalate poisoning and severe oxalate damage. Now, why? Was it because I was on a lot of antibiotics as a kid? I'm sure that absolutely contributed, but I don't think living on high oxalate foods did me any favors either. That's what I'm saying. So I thrive without plant foods. I just do. 8 years in, I feel great. I've sailed through menopause. Everything about my life is better. everything across the board. There has been no con for me. None. I feel amazing. I feel better than I did at any stage of my life prior to being carnivore. So there's nowhere for me to go because I've done the plant-based. I've done the meat and plants. I've done the vegan. I've done all sorts of varieties of that. I've done all of it. I've done raw. I've done this, I've done that. I don't do well with rice. I don't do well with starch. I don't do well with potatoes. I don't do well with grains. I don't do well with vegetables. I don't do well with fruit. As a matter of fact, fruit, I've never, ever felt good eating fruit, like my whole entire life. Like I would like the taste of it because, you know, it's sweet, whatever, but it never made me feel good. It always made me feel like shit. And it still does to this day. Yeah. Life is interesting. So I wanted to just tie this into skincare. Okay, so I know that possibly not everybody is going to thrive on a carnivore diet, and it's okay, do you, right? Find what works great for you. But what I'm saying is that if all of these carnivores are saying that they don't get sunburned anymore, it means it's doing something pretty fucking incredible, and it's realigning us to our biological blueprint, which is to not be getting skin cancer from the frickin' sun, because I don't believe that's normal. I don't believe that's normal at all. I believe it's abnormal. And I think the gunk that everybody has on their teeth every day from eating plant foods isn't normal either. I love having squeaky clean teeth. And no, I have not brushed my teeth today. Squeaky clean teeth. And I just had some clabber, some raw clabber. It doesn't collect on my teeth. I love not having shit on my teeth. Always having clean teeth. It feels so good. Like it feels so good. I do brush my teeth, of course, but I actually don't need to because I don't have anything on my teeth. There's nothing collecting there. Nothing. My teeth are as smooth could be. Yeah. So when you don't have plaque on your teeth and you don't get sunburned, to me, those are two really valid reasons to consider a high-fat carnivore diet. Notice I didn't say keto. I have mixed feelings about keto. I think it's great therapeutically if you have to do it. Is it something that I think everybody should do? I don't know. Would we have done keto in the wild? Would we have done that? I don't really know. Some say that we did. Some say that it's how we adapted to these big brains through ketones, because they know that the brain utilizes ketones far better than it does glucose, right? So again, you know, the woman who wrote, is it a book? I'm not sure, but the whole Fat of the Land, right? How, you know, basically fat is what started to make humans human and really started to, you know, develop these brains. Although, unfortunately, I don't know what's happened along the way because humans aren't super smart. You know, we may academically be smart, but most humans are actually lacking in critical thinking skills. And of course, are not connected to their intuition. It's a whole nother video. But I can honestly say that going carnivore has been eureka for me in every single way. And it's just one of those things, like, I feel great, sailed through menopause, feel amazing at 57, have no aches and pains, and feel great. So yeah, don't take synthetic hormones. I'm not doing any of that crap. Not chasing that anti-aging, ridiculous, transhuman agenda. Not interested in any of that stuff. So if you're following all those plant-based gurus and they're all promoting HRT and getting injectables and all of that stuff, you know, they're pushing you closer towards the transhuman agenda. So you might want to think twice before listening to them. All right? Signing out.